There you go. We'll open the meeting here at 6:30, and sorry for walking in right at 6:29. So anyways, we do roll call usually virtually here. Dave will take roll call for us. Public comments. Is there any public comments?
If not, I have not
Yeah,
received any public comments.
Okay, I don't have any there. Do we have approval of the minutes from December of 23?
Are in your packet, starting on page.
Has any comments on them? If there's a motion to approve the minutes.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December of 2023.
All right, motion on the floor, second.
A second.
All right, it's been seconded, motion made, seconded, all those approved, say aye. Aye. Nays? No extensions?
Oh, abstain.
Abstains?
Yeah, myself, because I wasn't on the board. at that meeting.
Oh, that's right, you were
I was
here,
just
but you
here
were
as-
just as an
yeah.
attendee, sorry about that.
Watch it.
All right. All right, motion passed on that. Any shout outs from the board, anything anybody wants to bring up from going on in our communities or anything?
Nothing going on, good.
Pretty much same old, same old. It was good January. I was kind of surprised. January is normally not.
Right.
My new landlord's taking care of the landscaping very nicely, just had the trees trimmed. She's getting a bid on restriping the parking lot.
Excellent.
I didn't know you had a new landlord, so the building sold? I wasn't aware of
The
this.
owner's divorced.
Oh, so they,
Kind of like landlords.
okay,
Yeah, she hadn't been involved before and now she's all over it.
Yeah.
So,
And you're liking?
everything seems to be good, so can't complain. Are doing a potluck for Super Bowl this Sunday. If anybody has no place to be.
One thing I'll mention is the Christmas lights. I think this is our first meeting since Christmas, so that seemed to go pretty well.
yeah,
And we put lights up on our building, a lot of the buildings did as well, so it's pretty cool to see.
yeah, that was pretty awesome. The year before was the first year we've done it. So it's great to see it expand, but also, flourish too, and see people get excited about that in our community and outside of our community. It's gotten some attention, and hopefully future years will bring more of that, Chris.
Yeah, I think there was like 5,000 more people that attended this year versus last year. Last year was 17,000, this year was 23,000. Those numbers don't write them down, but I think that's.
Wow,
How do you track that?
that's a zero.
Somebody was counting.
Yeah,
Yes,
there were
I
several
know.
people coming actually, and I'll say that Stocking Stroll was a huge success. I worked at City Hall and we were really impressed with the amount of people.
What was that
The
one?
Stocking Stroll.
I didn't hear about that one.
Oh, so it's like the trick or treat trail with Christmas.
Oh, okay.
And so we got I think it was about 50 businesses.
People walking around with socks, long stockings.
I'm getting old, and this cold weather.
Oh, it was at night, so you weren't running.
Yeah. No, I've never been to Arizona, but it's starting to feel nice thinking about that in the middle of winter. I did go at night with my family, extended family. We came and I don't know if there was no one there to count us, unless you had an automatic, walk through counter. But yeah, they had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Can I also say just, on behalf of the Economic Development Department, that was such a great idea the council came up with. And I couldn't think of a better way to promote Sandy, so thank you. I really appreciate you guys making that a priority. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and bringing in people to our community because the park gets used a lot in the summer, but to have something that could be used in the winter time frame and as it's sitting there is,
It's supposed to be even bigger this year, so.
Anyway, great deal. Any other shout outs we have? Anything fun on the planning commission that we should know about?
No, I think we're doing town plan review.
You're the chair?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm the chair. Hello, everybody, by the way, I'm Darren Wegner.
I'm sorry,
Thank you for joining our board.
have you not been here with it, or was it just the interview?
Yeah, this is my
Time
first
flies.
meeting.
I apologize, I thought you were here as well last time, so.
No, I tried to attend online, but there's a problem with the meeting that wouldn't let me in. So sorry I missed that last meeting, but I own Wegner Travel and Cruising Town, but I'm also the chair of the planning commission.
Which is pretty historic because Jerry, amazing, I love Jerry, has been the chair for 30 years.
Just about.
When I was on planning commission, he was the chair.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's exciting. I mean, with the moratorium, it's been pretty quiet overall, but we're looking at a lot of the same stuff that you guys are. And we just kind of went through a big block code change approvals. So I don't know how much effect that'll have here, but it was 315 pages of excitement.
And Mr. Chairman, Chris Jones is joining us.
Oh, hi, Chris. Well, why don't we do a break and let's go around and introduce ourselves. I apologize. I thought we had already done that at the last meeting. And obviously I missed that from either doing the interviews or already knowing that. So just so everyone in the room, and we got some audience and people on line there, but Jeremy Pietzold, I am the chair of the Economic Development Advisory Board, and
I'm Bill Schwartz, I own the Boring Brewing Company.
Darren already introduced himself.
Marcel Bracci, and my family owns AEC, a technical writing company in Sandy, and also the building there between Double Dragon and the dentist.
My name's Erin Ferguson. I work for Trimble Rentals.
Chris Mayton, I'm city council seat 1. I also sit on this board and I sit on the planning commission board as well as a liaison.
Awesome. And our audience here.
I'm Rebecca Hansett. I'm a teen librarian for the city of Sandy. And I'm Monica Smith. I'm the children's librarian for the city of Sandy.
Right. We do have some people on there online here. If you don't mind introducing yourselves. And David, you want to call their names out because the screen is sideways. I can't.
Yeah, well, first of all, our board member, Chris,
Chris Jones, Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce.
and then we have Beth Nicole. Beth, you want to go?
Beth Goodman with Echo Northwest. We'll be talking in a few minutes with you.
Hi, and Nicole Underwood with Echo Northwest.
Well, great. Thanks, everyone. We don't usually get audience members or guests coming in and speaking. So it's great to have you, and I apologize for not doing that earlier. But well, let's move on because I keep a tight ship and get us out by 8. So that's any economic development updates that you want to give us? That you have?
Nothing I can think of right now. School's being, demolitions are starting over on the San Quentin campus. I don't know if you guys have done the pool is mostly down now, and building 1 for Cedar Ridge will start. We plan on having all the demolitions done by. Just a second, Mr. Chairman, I will get their presentation up.
All right, so next up is new business, and we have outreach from the library and you're here. So I don't know if you want to come.
Yeah.
I'd like to get you on the camera somehow. So however that works, maybe sitting next to David would be the best. And I can just show you over my mic here, and you guys that way you can get on line and just.
I stand.
You may. If you want.
I'm
a.
Okay, cool. So again, I'm Rebecca Hansett, and I work at the Sandy Public Library and the teen librarian. I recently went with Sarah McIntyre to a bookmobile conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of enthusiasm for an outreach vehicle for the Sandy and Hoodlum area public libraries. So yeah, let's continue with the presentation. So why do we need an outreach vehicle? So Sandy and Hoodlum have a larger service area population than a number of the libraries in Clackamas County libraries, but have a lower percentage of library card users and checkouts because of our significant square mileage. Libraries are once again getting bookmobiles on the road, including Lake Oswego, Molalla, Estacada, which all have bookmobiles. Molalla has a similar square mileage service area, and since they have received an outreach vehicle, their card holders have increased 6.5%. we're interested in bringing library services to where people are. Just because there's lack of transportation, people might have difficulty getting to the library. We're interested in getting to retirement communities and senior centers, daycares, preschools, parks. Community stops include Boring, Orient, Rhododendron, and Government Camp. One of our strategic goals for the library is digital equity. With digital equity, we'll have access to the internet on the outreach vehicle. We plan to teach computer classes to underserved populations. We'll make computers available, printing services, and internet available to more of the community. We will offer STEAM classes and literacy activities for youth. STEAM includes science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. With these STEAM activities, we'll offer them at schools and parks, city events, and facilities, including the community center. These include also the Vista Apartments and the Pioneer Mobile Home Court. We will also offer story time, daycares, preschools, and offer these opportunities at the city parks. And then also, did we mention checking out library material? So in these outreach vehicles, they'll have items available for checkout, including books and media, which includes like CDs, DVDs, magazines, audiobooks, ebooks. These also include things that will bring in youth, like teen books, children's books, adult books, things that will essentially bring in people wanting to come and check out the outreach vehicle. Not only that, with having an outreach vehicle, it will help us increase the volume of cardholders in the community. So the impact of the outreach vehicle in the community will increase kids' early literacy activities, including story time and a program we called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. With a little bit more information about 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, I'll hand that over to Monica, who can explain that a little bit more than I can.
Yeah, so 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is an early literacy program we currently offer, and it's just basically what exactly it sounds like. We encourage, it's a national program, and it encourages parents to read 1,000 books to their kids before they start kindergarten. And the idea is just to develop the practice of reading to your child, which is really great for kids because it teaches them the skills they need learn in order to learn to read later on when they're in school. So part of our goal is to do these early literacy activities so we can help the kids learn to read later on. So it's just one of the things that we do. And so this would be a great way for us to get the word out and to sign people up for that program.
One of the programs that we offer at the public library is a summer reading program. So having an outreach vehicle will increase the number of adults, children, and teens who can participate in the summer reading program. What that will do is help reduce the summer slide, which will also hand over to Monica, who can explain what the summer slide is.
Yeah, so summer slide, part of the reason why we like to do summer reading programs because kids, if they don't continue learning over the summer or like reading, just simply even just reading books is super helpful for kids to do over the summer. And it they call it the summer slide because their sort of learning sort of capacity goes down over the summer if they're not doing these kinds of activities. So that's part of why we offer the summer reading program to kids. And we also offer it to parents and all ages actually, so that adults can also sort of participate as well. Encourage their kids to do it.
So it'll increase kids and teens in their STEAM learning activities. We'll be able to bring like science experiments out to local community areas. Our activities, of course, ways to engage in mathematics and technology. Again, like we said, the Vista apartment complex where they're not where they don't necessarily have access to transportation to the library. So bringing those opportunities to them is really important, as well as the Pioneer Mobile Home Park, which is a little farther away from the library and also doesn't have access to transportation to the library, as well as bringing them to schools. It's going to increase the number of computer sessions and computer class participation. It's going to increase the number of card holders and regular library users. What we're asking from you is what can you do to help us? What we're asking from you is to write a letter of support from your organization, a letter of support for the outreach vehicle. We're looking for your input as to where and when a good place would be to park the vehicle. We're open to your input. Where do you think that the vehicle would be a good place to park? Where do you think where in the community there is need for maybe an outreach vehicle that would support the need for literacy, like STEAM activities, access to information, technology, internet, things like that. There's going to be a survey coming out soon that we hope that you can fill out. We're hoping that you talk to your friends and your neighbors about the outreach vehicle, and also assist in fundraising efforts by just getting the word out. We do have information or a example of what the outreach vehicle looks like.
If you guys would like to see it, I can pass it. Could you pass this around that way? And I have 3 of them, so you'll have to kind of share.
Thank you for listening to that.
So if we were to give you a letter of support, how quickly?
How quickly? I think a couple weeks, I would think. I mean, we might need to ask Sarah for sure, but she did mention we're working on a grant right now, so I think she kind of wants to sort of move ahead on the grant. So, you know.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with Sarah and David. She reached out to me and said, let's bring it to the group, but I can't make a decision on that. That's not appropriate. That's not right. So I said, could you on the agenda? So I appreciate you coming.
Okay,
There might be some questions we have.
Sure,
That we want to fill out, but one of the questions I know some of the answers because I've been on council and I've learned a lot about the library for many years, but maybe not for everyone would know that. There's an importance with how many people we have card holders and accounts. You want to explain that and how funding works around, checkouts and those type of things in the county library system? Because I think there's what you guys were kind of alluding to, can be a negative for us. It's a big area,
right?
But we may not have as many checkouts as in another community like Malone, can see the big increase, but also help with your.
Yeah, so we do get funded by the county. Is that what you were talking about? Yeah, so we do get funded from the county, Clackamas County. And so, yeah, the more checkouts we have within the county, the more funding we'll get. Helps our funding. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is it just checkouts or is it number of card holders?
We keep statistics on both of those things. Yeah. So I think both of those things are held into account.
My understanding it is because it also looks, if they put money into different areas, numbers of money. You look at that. So I was also surprised to see like Oswego, which is they're a very rural area, like Oswego.
Yeah.
But they have.
Yeah.
I was in Southern Oregon down in Ashland a couple of years ago at a conference, and they invited for the city actually. It was the Oregon Connections Conference about internet connectivity, of course. And they had that county down there. But they had a bill there. Jackson had the same setup. It looks basically exactly the same.
Yeah.
So when you go in and do and they pull that around, the county, it was a countywide thing.
Yeah.
Necessarily a city, and then they do the library systems down there a little bit different. I was really impressed in that they offer bringing to schools.
Yeah.
Is there any connection with schools and trying to? There was an article in the paper the other day about a school district that was going to register all their library cards
Mhm.
in that. And I thought to myself, first thing I thought, I was like, you're boosting your numbers for more money. Like, they were automatically enrolling
Yeah.
with,
Oh, right.
if you were a student, you get a card.
Yes,
Which
yes,
then, you just bump your numbers up.
Yeah. yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
but just curiosity if there's been that discussion.
Yeah, we are kind of working within the link system, which is Libraries in Clackamas County. We're all separate libraries, but we're connected through this network. And we're trying to actually do exactly that same thing. We're trying to work with all the different school districts, which is kind of a huge undertaking because there's so many different school districts to see if we can get library cards to all of the students within the school district.
Yeah, so this one would be Oregon Trail.
So it would be our Oregon Trail. So we're kind of starting that process. We're starting discussions with them. And I know an Oregon Trail, Oregon City, they've kind of already started the process.
They may have been the one that read the article.
Yeah, so we're working on that. Yeah, it's something that we're definitely working on for sure. Yeah.
And Multnomah County is very, and has already started that program. It's been pretty successful with getting more children into the libraries. Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward, first of all, totally in support of action. I already signed a letter in support on behalf of the planning commission. So absolutely, thank you for that. My kids would absolutely love it if, this came into town. But I have a question around kind of staffing for this and what staffing looks like, what it takes to staff this sort of thing and how that affects library staff.
Yeah. So let's see, we've had this question before. So what we're gonna do at first is staff it with current library staff. So for example, since I'm the children's librarian, I would be taking it to the schools and to the daycares. Rebecca would be going to the high schools and other
And, like, middle
teen
schools and
locations,
parks,
yeah, that are relatable to that. And so, and then we're gonna have it staffed also by volunteers. So it'll be like one staff person and one volunteer that's helping out. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll have to just put more people on the desk, in that way. So, and then hopefully after we've done that and just kind of see how that goes. She's talking about maybe hiring somebody to run. Yeah, so we kind of have a plan for that because we're not planning on hiring anybody like immediately to do that. So.
Yeah, the sustainability of having staffing with the bookmobile is like what Monica was saying was we're planning to do, one staff member, one volunteer to start with to see how that goes. And what's great about the library is that a lot of the staff that are not librarians are interchangeably trained. So there won't be staffing issues as far as who's going to be on a desk and where. So thankfully, if the librarians are going on and doing the professional work, going to the schools and the retirement communities and the parks, they're really still staff and competent workers in the library.
So it sounds like you're gonna do a broad reach out for grants and for fundraising to get the total dollars. What about future dollars needed to do the maintenance on the vehicle that you purchased?
Yes, let's see, this is definitely a Sarah question, so let me see here. So she gave us some questions here that were already asked. So let's see, she's got some.
The reason why Sarah's not here is there's also a library board meeting.
Yeah, she's in a library board.
100%,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was like she had some other things she had to do. So maintenance, this comes up a lot. So the way she described it to me, I'm not a budget person, so I don't know the details, but so she said that she tends to have surplus in the budget every year and for different kinds of things like this. And so she's planning on using the surplus that we usually have for maintenance costs. And then the next time we go through a budget cycle, she would write that into it. Yeah.
And it may also come from, we have the Friends of the Library, that's a fundraising group for us that helps with programming and extracurricular activities. And so that might be a way to sustain the extra cost.
Especially a new
as well.
vehicle, it will be covered for a couple of years.
Yeah,
It's a tires,
yeah.
oil change.
Right, yeah, eventually we'll definitely.
Make sure that money's accounted for.
Exactly. Good question.
Chris, do you have any questions on the screen?
I don't think I do at this time. I'm actually really excited, as a previous preschool teacher, if we had an option like this, it would have been amazing. So I see a lot of cool things coming of this.
Questions from you all? I think it adds value to our community. And by doing that, drives, more resiliency in our residents, but in our businesses as well. Because we have more to offer in our community, not having to leave or thinking that, it's just as our community grows and what we're able to offer, I think, is a really good asset to that. And, someone that, my kids, all learned how to read chapter books and that, because my wife was pretty amazing, before they entered kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Because of those, there's just the ability of going to the library and they become, readers. I don't know if they're about 15 or only about 50 things now, but anyway, that's another story. But they've just read probably thousands of books. I don't know, that's a lot of number, hundreds of books. So it's all just and then the battle of the books. The schools
course,
do,
yes.
is a huge thing, and hopefully that maybe
Yeah,
that
for
as
sure.
well, because schools are. So the ask here to our group is whether or not we would support a letter of recommendation to grant, to, what do you call it, to support or give to this cause here. And with the Economic Development Committee, we do not have money. We are not the
Right.
advisory board. We don't give money to anyone, that's the council. But we can give our support of our group of the planning commission's already done that. And assuming the council, if it's part of the council.
Who's the audience for the letter?
We're working on a grant to, the Ford.
Ford family.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, so it would be that, but Sarah can probably give you more information about the details, yeah.
And it sounded like in the email from Sarah, David and I, was that there was other opportunities and other people that may be
Yeah.
giving out grants, not just one foundation or one grant, maybe other organizations like businesses or something that they want to support. Is how I took it. I just went back and forth on it.
Right, yeah.
So, if there's any other questions, what's the will of this advisory board? Do we think this is a good idea? Do we want to support it? Do we not? Getting a lot of nods and the thumbs up, Chris. It sounded like you were favorite. Okay, so I see that. Maybe just to make it kind of official, it's like maybe we'll just take a vote. All those in favor of supporting it in a letter to support this with the library, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And opposed? Hearing none, we will sign a letter of support to the library in this Oakland bill. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to draft a letter for you to review.
Yeah, we'll do that, and if that's okay with all of you. We had a draft of one from Sarah.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah, that got sent to us. Through,
Oh, yeah, that's.
I'm assuming it's pretty similar. You probably had her draft.
I sure did.
Well, you did. So, what the worst is, I put the ChatGPT back in the letter. But, so we'll get that and, then we'll get second.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for letting us
And
know.
I will try to get that letter completed as soon as possible.
Okay,
'Cause I
thank
think
you.
it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
great, thank you so much.
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
All right. We'll move on. So we have a comp plan update. Nicole,
No, Beth.
oh, Beth, I'm just reading on here. So
Oh, does it say Nicole?
Nicole Underwood. Is
Oh,
that
sorry, that was my error.
wrong?
Nicole's the next one.
Okay, So we'll start with the comp plan update. That up.
Okay, Beth, we've got block 3 up on the screen.
So actually, Nicole is going to walk through the different goals and the policies and see what questions you have. I figured I'd just make a remark or two before we got going. You probably all know that the city is doing an update to its comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan is the guiding document for how the city should grow over the next 20 years. And as Nicole will tell you in a moment or two, for economic development, we are really building what we're looking at in terms of goals and policies, partially off of what we found in the economic development, but then looking very closely at your economic development strategy that you just finished recently. So I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, and I'll be here if she wants to kick any questions my way, and I'll be taking notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. And yes, I get to talk to you guys about 2 topics tonight. So very exciting. So as Beth said, we've actually got 4 goals that we're going to go over tonight with the associated policies. I'm going to go ahead and start by reading the goal, and then I'll start by reading the policies in their entirety, but I can always switch to summarizing if that's preferred as we move through. The main thing here is we want to give you a chance to comment, both on the content of the individual policies, as well as just let us know if there's anything overarching that we are missing and should be written in as a policy. And then as Beth, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And Nicole, I was just going to prompt you to talk about the actions a little.
Yes, the economic development strategic plan, is, as Beth said, a lot of these policies are based off of that document. And so the economic development strategic plan basically holds the actions that will be implementing a lot of these policies. And so as I go through, there's a couple that I'll call out, and I'll mention what goals these are associated with in that document. But just so you know, there are actions that will implement these. And so goal 1, just starting straight off, is provide opportunities for a diverse range of businesses to thrive in Sandy, ensuring broader access to economic opportunity and maintaining Sandy's high quality of life. This particular goal and the policies underneath it align mostly with goals 1 and 2 and the coordinating actions of the economic development strategic plan. The policies here focus on coordinating economic development efforts with other jurisdictions and agencies, fostering entrepreneurship and new businesses, attracting higher than average wage jobs, and then also partnering to provide workforce development and supportive services for residents. And so policy 1.1 is to coordinate economic development efforts with other jurisdictions and agencies, such as those listed here. And the goal being to identify and support expansion of existing industries and attraction of new industries to the community. I'm just going to keep going through. Please pause me if you want to wordsmith or you have any comments. If not, I'll just stop at the end of the goal 1, and we can kind of see if those meet what you're hoping for. Policy 1.2 is foster entrepreneurship and new business creation by leveraging investments in technology, strengthening economic development partnerships, and connecting businesses to resources. 1.3 is attract businesses offering jobs that pay higher than Clackamas County's average wages to provide opportunities for people to live and work in Sandy, focusing on industries such as metal fabrication, outdoor tools manufacturing, and related professional services. And can you scroll down? Thank you. Those industries are pulled from the Economic Development Strategic Plan as target industries. This particular one also gets at a little bit of what we discussed in the last advisory board meeting, which brought up the desire for higher wage jobs, particularly ones that are in manufacturing and the like that don't require as high a level of education. So then policy 1.4 is to partner with local and regional organizations. And these are listed here. Some of those organizations are also listed in your strategic plan. And that's to support workforce development, especially for youth and disadvantaged workers, aligning with Sandy's economic development goals and the needs of local businesses. And then the last policy under this goal is to ensure that Sandy residents have access to healthcare, childcare, job training, and support systems. I'm going to pause if there's any comments on that. If not, I will just keep right on going. Beth has a comment.
Well, my comment was to ask David to do exactly what he just did, which was to scroll up to show us goal 1 on data policy 1.5. These are really, thank you, David, really the broad, broad economic development stuff that the city will be focusing on. And then there's goals related to commercial and industrial later.
Just one comment on policy 1.1. I just looking at it as the economic development manager, I might add travel wording to that one.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, the recommendation, we're not seeing any.
Perfect. All right, I'll move on to the commercial ones. And so the commercial goal here is to foster vibrant commercial zones with a mix of retail options that serve the needs of regional residents and enhance destination appeal. This goal and the following policies align most strongly with goals 5 and 6 of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. Those are the ones focused around enhancing tourism and hospitality, as well as establishing Sandy as a leader for East Clackamas County in retail. And so we'll just get into policy 2.1 is to invest in the development of a lively, walkable downtown to support a mixture of commercial and retail uses. 2.2 is to support and encourage infill and redevelopment, particularly in downtown along Pioneer Boulevard, Proctor Boulevard, Pleasant Street, and Pleasant Street as a way to use land and existing infrastructure more efficiently. And then use large and undeveloped commercial areas to support a range of retail businesses with an emphasis on ensuring availability of space for large retailers integrated with smaller commercial uses. Just as a kind of side note, one of the implementing actions on this policy 2.3 is that retail analysis that that the city is going to be doing with Echo Northwest. And then policy 2.4 is to encourage and support a variety of retail, restaurant, and recreational services to draw visitors and enhance community well-being for residents through strategic investments in hospitality, place-based tourism, and community development. And then the last one is to monitor land development and update the buildable lands inventory on a regular basis to ensure that there is enough vacant commercial land to accommodate expected growth. I'm not incredibly surprised there's not too many comments, especially since that this is should sound a lot like your economic development strategic plan.
Yeah, like some of these are almost word for word, which is great.
Yeah. So it should be that way. Okay. All right, we'll move into industrial then. Goal 3 is to promote sustainable and non-polluting industrial growth that diversifies Sandy's economic base, supports high-wage job creation, and cultivates innovation. These align with goals 3 and 4 of the strategic plan, which focus on food processing and manufacturing. These policies focus on ensuring that Sandy has sufficient land for industrial development, specifically sites that are appropriate for that industry, and then focusing on partnerships and encouraging collaboration. So 3.1, ensure that Sandy has sufficient industrial land to provide industrial growth opportunities with a variety of characteristics and sizes, and with adequate access to transportation and utility facilities by avoiding conflicts with incompatible uses. Preserve and protect industrial lands in locations with direct access to highway, particularly parcels 10 acres and larger, so that the land is more likely to be used for traded sector industrial uses, and then also limit commercial development in industrial areas in uses which are clearly ancillary. And I always struggle with this one. Someone's going to tell me how to say this properly. Ancillary. And subordinate industrial development. And then 3.3, work with economic development partners to support the development of metals fabrication and related industries. And then encourage collaboration between businesses and innovators in specialty food and beverage industries to strengthen the food storage and processing sector. And then the last one is the monitor industrial development, similar to the commercial development, and update your buildable lands inventory.
Comments? Seeing none here.
So I do have one minor comment for you. Policy 3.2 is kind of an important one. You don't have a lot of industrial land. And so making sure that you really consider conversion of industrial land, especially larger sites before you do that conversion, I think is certainly worth doing. And this policy will cause the city to take pause before it rezones industrial sites with these characteristics, which I think is worth the discussion and thought for later on, if those pressures come true.
Thank you. Yeah, we know we have a lot of hills out here, so we don't have a lot of flat land either.
I was
So,
reminded of that going through Estacada the other day, seeing all the industrial buildings that they have out there. It's like, wow, but they got all that flat land.
It's all that flat land right on the highway.
And cut in a nice 5-acre parcel.
Yeah, it's,
But they don't have any natural gas.
True.
Anyway,
Pluses and minuses.
we'll move on.
All right, well, this is the last goal under the economic development policies. So this is for infrastructure. And the goal is to ensure that Sandy has sufficient infrastructure capacity to support a variety of employment opportunities, ensuring that land can be developed within a reasonable time period. And so there's only 2 policies under this one: coordinating capital improvement planning with economic development planning to ensure infrastructure availability to employment lands, and then investing in SandyNet and other resources and infrastructure that support and attract a home-based workforce. And that one is certainly aligned with your strategic plan, which also was interested in attracting the home-based workforce.
Nicole, I don't remember the actions we had under 4.1, but were any of the actions about pursuing state grants?
I do know the actions. Give me one sec.
And if they weren't, we might want to consider, including an action like that, because in a certain sense, goal 4 is the key to making any of the other goals work, assuming that you've got some land to do this. Because as you all know, with the moratorium, there's lots of things you can't do right now. So.
Yeah, we have, one of the actions is just pursuing funding for needed infrastructure improvements, and we can expand on that. But yeah.
Question, I'm all about, supporting and putting out their SandyNet. I might be the poster child, but there's other infrastructure things. And why weren't like water, sewer, roads, even electricity capabilities added into this goal 4? Like, I love calling out SandyNet, and it should be there. 100% agree with that, but what about some of those others?
Nicole, can I take this?
Yeah, please do.
So your things like your road, your needs for roads, those are dealt with your transportation system plan. And so when we're saying coordinate your capital improvements plannings, that includes your transportation system plan. The same thing is true for your water and wastewater facilities. And so to a certain sense, those are called out without being named. We could certainly name them here. I would have a little concern about having too much of a policy here around those without making sure that it didn't conflict with the policies under your facilities planning and your transportation system planning. For electricity, I would defer to David here a little bit about that. But electricity and natural gas are things that are outside of the city's control, whereas SandyNet is something that's inside of the city's control. And so there could be a policy about coordinating with other service providers, such as the electricity service providers. But you wouldn't want to go too far into that beyond that coordination piece, because that's really outside of the city's control.
Yeah, I was thinking it is outside the city's control as the city doesn't own that, but coordination with, I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at Colorado, they've been in, coordination with the electric company for sure because of the data centers and to
Yep.
get that infrastructure, obviously it's bringing them an economic boon. Not saying we're going to get data centers out here and that type of thing, but to that same point,
Oh.
we've had a lot of issues in the last 10 years or more about buildings and development slowing down because we can't get the PGE or the electric grid to be able to act quick enough. I mean, the food carts were an example of where they thought the city was holding them up. It wasn't. They're just sitting there because they couldn't get the electricity hooked up by PGE for months on end, like 6
Right.
months. So having that does have an economic impact. And then also, what is some of the things that could go on from a city to help with the encouragement of working in the future with them. Does that make sense at all? And I guess doesn't have natural gas, they would love it. And so they're constantly trying to get that. It's not in their circle, but it is part of needing to get that for the livability of their community.
David, it seems like adding a policy about coordinating with those other infrastructure providers and naming some of them would be smart here.
It was just an idea. I'd like to hear from the rest of the group too, what your thoughts are. I'm a big infrastructure person. So. Any comments?
I was just gonna say, I thought that it was generic enough because Senate Bill 1537 that they're going through right now is gonna dramatically change land use in Oregon if it passes. And that's the governor's plan for moving housing fast. And it may change the way we as a city can classify our own properties or change them if we want to, right? Commercial, residential, and limit. So we can't be too specific in the language there. And I thought it was written, I was gonna say pretty good because you want it to be vague enough so you can incorporate any higher level changes that the state imposes on small city government.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I haven't been following that bill because,
Read it.
doing some other things right now.
What number is it?
1537.
Senate bill?
Yeah, Senate Bill 1537.
No, that's great perspective. I appreciate it. I'm not saying my idea was, something we should go for. Just
They all have
having
great
infrastructure in
intentions.
place,
Our controls.
infrastructure, future developments, but
I don't think that Senate bill is going to really change the need for infrastructure. I think it just may change how some of planning is governed and what you can do in terms of variances and not. So
I think putting in our road, Bell Street 362nd is an infrastructure road is opened up an enormous amount. It wasn't going to do it on its own, at least not probably for the next 15 years. Because it's been sitting doing that. And those are some of the ideas I think of. And when putting that in there, putting in the sewer and the water type of to prep it and get it ready. But we can go either way. I think overall this whole thing is going to be good for our moving forward. So any other thoughts on that? Or
I think 4.1 kind of covers what you're talking about. That's the part that's about the capital improvement planning.
and capital improvement planning is something that's specifically inside the city with city infrastructure versus coordinating with outside infrastructure providers.
meaning outside would be natural gas and
Electrical PGA.
electric. It's free about the electric grid. We know it's pretty sour right now. Just it's aged, and we have a lot more demands on it. So
Certainly some issues with that percent every year too, and we're not unique.
no, we're not. I mean, it's the whole.
But
It's all of this area, metro region. So thoughts, leave it as is, it sounds like, and having the capital improvement 4.1 covers some of those things, except maybe for electric and gas, which are both monopolies outside of our control. Outside of our control, meaning we can't bring in competition for them, but doesn't mean that we can't advocate for.
So at the risk of being a wordsmith, does it do us any benefit to put the word sustainable between other and resources in 4.2?
What resources are you thinking about, that would be, not sustainable? I mean, what are you thinking that might gain you? I'm not opposed to it. I'm just wondering.
Of infrastructure, I think of it's solid, I think of it's permanent. When I think of resources, I think of they come and they go. And I don't know what I'm thinking about. I just think of the word. So I was just wondering if we are looking for that, are we looking for something that is sustainable into the long-term future or not? It's indifferent. I just,
So there are people who will tell you that natural gas is not sustainable. And I'm not going to argue about that. But I think if you leave it a little bit vague, then you get to interpret it at the time that it's needed, unless you are specifically looking at excluding some resources through that.
I'm big too. I just was asking.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate your question and I appreciate your response about the date, because I can totally see that in 5 or 7 years, depending on who might be, or 10 years, who might be trying to read or push one way or the other. Okay, so we'll leave it. Sounds like we'll leave it. All right, let's move on. Was that it? That's it.
That's the final goal.
Any closing remarks on that aspect of it?
So these will be going to in front of the Planning Commission and the City Council on a date that I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I know that we've received at least one comment from a planning commissioner, and might be getting another comment or two on the Block 3 goals.
Maybe your comment. Well, and now that you're on this board too, you can reference the comments that we brought up too. So, or you're well aware of where we're at as well. So, all right. I appreciate that and all the work there and bring it forward, and it feels like we're on the home run stretch there.
Does. Well, I think I will end up dropping off, as the retail project is one that I'm not involved in, that Nicole's running the show over there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
All right.
Quick question, is what's most of that land around Bell Street zone? Is that commercial?
Commercial.
Commercial, it's all seafood.
Yeah.
Well, it's not all seafood. Most of it's.
North side of it is what our.
Yeah, there's some residential up there.
Kind of fades into the neighborhood a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A commercial could be residential.
Yeah, well, it
Sure.
could be that mixed use of commercial on the bottom, retail on top, and you know, if we all had our own $1 billion, we could dream about what we could build. All right. Next, Nicole, if you want to kick it off with the retail market, and we have about 40 minutes left in the meeting. So.
Okay, I was just going to run through the scope really quickly, and I know that we want to focus on the case study portion of this. So just as a reminder, Echo Northwest is going to be working with the city of Sandy on a retail market analysis. This is in a way an update from some of the 2009 and I think the 2015 work that you did. This was supposed to be done in 2020, and then for obvious reasons, this got postponed. And so this is coming back. There's been a lot of changes over the past 10 years since this was last done. And there's been a lot of changes related to COVID. And so we'll be working on updating that and looking at how some of the national trends and the changes in both population dynamics, tourism, and how that will impact the retail environment in Sandy. And so I'll just walk through the tasks quickly. If you want to move down to task 1, David. So we're going to start with, we'll look at your previous studies. We'll look at, what has actually based on those previous market studies and other trends we're seeing, what has actually happened, and how does that track with the forecasted estimates from the 2009 and 2014 estimates. And then, like I said, we're going to be bringing in a lens of how has the structural market conditions changed? We know there's been changes and shifts in space utilization. People are working from home more. The trends in going online has shifted what retail space needs to look like. We know that the food service industry particularly has shifted as more people are getting delivery with Uber Eats and that kind of thing. And then there's also been change in migration patterns. We've seen people kind of moving out from the metro and out to places like Sandy. And then if you just move on, like I said, there's also been an increase in tourism and the attraction of markets that are outside of larger cities. And I think there's an important point here for Sandy specifically, which is your development moratorium. And so we'll also, while that was national trends, we'll also be considering, you know, how that does impact the types of retail and what will happen. And so then very typical for a retail market analysis, we'll be establishing a market area and identifying who your target market's going to be, what their preferences are. And so, you know, that all impacts the type of retail that would be successful in Sandy. And then moving on to the forecast of current and future market conditions in this task 4, will be looking at spending, you know, what oftentimes a retail gaps analysis, what are people spending money on and how much of that is being captured within Sandy, and what kind of opportunities does that mean for Sandy? How much of that spending that people are making on purchases potentially outside of Sandy could be captured in Sandy? And so then being able to translate that into square feet of development for particular retail types. And so that's kind of what that task will entail. And like I said, this is where the development moratorium will also be a big consideration. And then task 5 is pretty self-explanatory. It's an inventory of your current land and space supply. And so we'll just be looking at what's existing there, what your current vacancy rates are, and then just looking at some trends over time. How has that shifted? This case study analysis is, I think, where we want to spend the majority of the time. Part of, the main part of this, the final, if you want to actually switch to task 7 real quick, David, the final document is going to be a summary of our findings. And then it's also going to include a recommendation. So these are a set of recommendations and actions for the city to consider to support the retail environment. And I think that's where your case study analysis is going to come in and be pretty important. So what the case study analysis will do is we're going to be identifying, I think we said up to 3 peer regions, and identifying what they're doing to attract different retailers and development into the city, and how well that's working, and what some of the things that they're doing could be applied to Sandy in that context. And so if you want to shift back to task 6, when we're thinking about this, we want to think about, you know, cities that are relatively in similar scale to Sandy that have tourism impacts. I think an important part of Sandy is that you're on the way to places. You are on the way to Mount Hood, and you are on the way to the metro region from the other side. And you also you're very close to the metro region. And so that's going to be a center of gravity over there. So you want to consider different cities for case study that have similar characteristics like that. And so I'm going to give it back to you, David. If you want to, I'll let you lead from there. I'm here to kind of answer questions or help think through some of these case studies, but I'll give it back to you.
We talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the meeting before we really got going here. You know, so I figured you guys might have some opinions about this, considering that there are a number of really good examples of cities that are, you know, approximately our size, some a little smaller, some a little bigger, that have really done wonderful work when it comes to this sort of thing. I'm thinking of cities like, you know, with impressive downtowns, well, McMinnville was the one that we talked about earlier. I'm a little bit more interested in McMinnville only because, as I said earlier, McMinnville kind of is what we aspire to be, or at least that's kind of the way I'm thinking of it. When we get to their population level, I mean, they do have tourism inputs in that. They're the kind of the gateway to the wine country. And you can see some of that in their downtown, but really just the way they've designed their downtown and the businesses that they have. That's, you know, that's something that I would aspire for Sandy to look at, 5 to 10 years from now as we continue growing. But there are certainly other examples of other cities around that are our size or even smaller that have done a fantastic job with, drawing people in and really pushing their retail businesses. I'm thinking of cities like Sisters, cities like Hood River. There's lots of other examples, but I'm more interested in what you guys think. So as you think about cities that you've been around here in Oregon or even Southwest Washington, I would imagine. Does anything really can you think of one that really stands out as to how their downtown is, how their retail sector is, how walkability is, just that kind of draws you into the downtown? And again, I mean, Hood River's classic example. They've got a great downtown, a great main drag there. There's lots and lots of diverse retail businesses there, and it does draw people from the region. But again, I'm not, you guys are, so I'm more interested in your thoughts than
The ones that you listed are the ones that I've been to, like McMinnville, Hood River.
Yeah. And Nicole, to be clear, you guys have looked at a lot more cities than we have, obviously. I mean, this is what you do for a living. So we're certainly.
Yeah. I was going to say, I didn't want to lead with giving some potential. I wanted to get some thoughts before I made any suggestions. Certainly Hood River came up for us as well as Sisters. A couple of other places, and I don't know them very well. I brainstormed a little bit with Chris, who's going to be the project director on this. And he was mentioning places like Ridgefield. I don't know if you've seen any of their downtown, some places that are a little bit smaller that are maybe more up and coming. And so Ridgefield came up, like I said, Hood River was one that I thought would be interesting purely from it's almost like McMinnville, an aspiration, like what could it be? And then Ridgefield being one that is more attainable, like a little bit more attainable, happening right now, a little smaller. There's also the potential to, oh, sorry if somebody was speaking.
No, you're good.
Okay. There's also the potential to look at, some places like Oregon City. It's not, it doesn't necessarily have the same downtown, but it's certainly it's like slightly, it's kind of out of the way. It's out of, it's not the draw of the Portland metro region. It's certainly been developing. And so it's, not quite as far out as Sandy, but it could be an interesting one as well. I'll pause.
Yeah, I think those are all great. We want to make Sandy ours, right?
course,
And not be, they're great as examples to look at and bring into, but we want to make ourselves, we're unique, right?
Of course.
Good or bad. I mean, we have a highway right going through the center of us that divides our town, and we have some ups and downs, and we don't have a grid system like some of the communities that you talked about. which are
Well,
great,
that's one of the
so-
reasons why I like McMinnville, because they used to have a highway going through their downtown too, and they resolved that. So,
Yeah, a long time ago, yeah.
yeah.
It was ugly for a while.
It was ugly for a
Way
while.
ugly for a while.
And Redmond has kind of done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like Redmond's example because we've watched Redmond as, well, I was on city council and stuff and went over and talked to them
Yeah.
multiple times and what they had to do. And so the town didn't dry up when it came to that. Now, we want to bypass, or I want to bypass too one day,
Yeah.
but it's going to be 20, 30 years down the road just because of how long it takes these things to get funded, right? You have to start somewhere, and we tried and
Yeah, the
started
process
something
is
here
hard, but
a few years ago, but it's got another 20, 30 years on this. But it's also about the retail and market analysis is also about what our community needs too.
Mhm.
So not sign or it looks like, what is it that we're getting? What is it our residents want in our community? I love the different things that you brought up, going through this a few times in my working volunteer with the city. Some of the things didn't exist back then, the Grubhub stuff. And I haven't personally ever done that, but I know it's a popular thing. to give people that maybe just had a baby or, like they need help, but, and I know that's a big thing out there, but so it's changing that environment's constantly changing.
And I think I mentioned this too, but your work from home, like the push for work from home and more people just being present. I'm curious how that's gonna look in this market analysis. This is kind of new. More and more people working for, like you're not getting that draw into a downtown like Portland. And so I think that's gonna be an interesting piece of this. You have more daytime population potentially.
I wonder, like people like the Ant Farm, business like that, when I drive by, I'm not here during the day, but when I do come by through, I mean, seeing all the people in there and it looks like they're working, maybe they're all socializing for mid-lunch meetings or whatever, but I think, those type of businesses where they are catering to both, like, hey, get some food, get some coffee, meet, and have an environment where it's not just purely a restaurant type of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting when you go into Ant Farm now, between like 9 and 1. It's look around and see how many people are on their laptops. There's a lot. And that's Ant Farm's really benefited from that. I mean, by providing a place where even though it's a little bit loud in there from time to time, they provide a big wide open space where people can get together and maybe have business meetings. I mean, there's big business meetings happening all the time.
I think it'll be
You're
good.
there from time to time.
Yeah. I think it'd be good to keep a kind of open mind to it too, because remote work is changing still. A friend of mine who works for Daimler Chrysler, they're all being called back to work 4 days a week. So where's it going to go? Is it going to start? I think it'll start to shift back, but I don't think it'll go back to where it was before.
But you said 4, not 5.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Because they know, so
Yeah.
where it lands in 20 years, we don't know. but
Exactly.
I don't think it will be what it was in 2019. So yeah, that will play a big effect into this market analysis because of our residents and what they're needing, what they're wanting.
I'd also be interested in our esteemed chamber executive director's opinion on this. Hi, Chris.
Sorry, Chris, it's hard to remember to look up at the screen.
No problem. No problem.
Other communities, and comparatively speaking, I'm really curious as to your take on this. Is there a city that sticks out to you?
Well, of course, the Madras, the Redmond area, and I love going to Hood River, so I love that area as well. But one that comes to mind, and keep in mind this was 2018, I think, when I was there, or 2019 last, but downtown Lebanon went through changes and turned their downtown back into a thriving one. And we got to tour it. I was there for an ambassador meeting with them, and it was really kind of cool what they had done too. So it's not one of those well-known ones, but they had really came together as a community and really tried to bring back that. And honestly, I haven't spoke with them to see how it's going now, but I'd love to take a trip down there and see how things are going for them. But they had a bunch of mixed buildings in there. I mean, they had a gym in the middle of the downtown area. They had a 50s cafe, and you went through the back door and it was this beautiful purple tea room. And then, they had a brewery. They had all these things down there to do, but they also had the banks, and they had some of the service industries too, which was kind of cool, which our downtown currently has a ton of service industries. So finding a way to mix those up was kind of a cool concept that they were doing.
I'm trying to think, have I ever even been to one?
Yeah. We have an employee that lives there.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, yeah, so I would have never thought of that. Thanks, Chris.
I'm curious if anybody's spent any time in St. Helens. I know that Echo's done some work there, and I know that they've been doing some work, but I haven't personally been, so I can't recommend it or not. But has that been on anybody's radar?
On there the last few years in the middle of the night running through Hood to Coast.
Was there anything interesting?
Not in the middle of the night. But
Okay.
I've been there on a boat, got off to have dinner, got back on the boat. They walk around.
Went to a concert. They had that venue out there.
we're from Sandy. We don't go to the west side often.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But she's down.
And I used to work in Richfield, and it is set up a lot like we are. I mean, even their 4th of July, they do the same thing. They do parade with lining the families up along the street, and they throw candy out. It's a little smaller and a little more country.
Where is Richfield?
Um,
I have no
It's
idea.
exit 14 and I-5
In Washington.
in Washington. Yeah.
Oh, up in Washington,
Yeah,
okay.
it's up one way down. Yeah, and it's
Oh, okay,
they're a growing community.
okay.
I work.
They're a little smaller than us.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like that.
I was there in 17 and 18, so I worked for PepsiCo there, and the town was on a rat's bill. I almost bought it.
Kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like a rival because I grew up here. Estacada is really changing the downtown a lot, right? Like, we're not set up the same in that area, but it's a much smaller town. But I kind of like some of the things that they've been doing. Now we are, from what I think of a retail like competitor in a lot of ways. So when Fred Meyer's went in here, it really sucked a lot of business out. And they had to redevelop and refigure things out because we just became a lot closer to them than Clackamas when I heard from a lot of businesses. So what we do here will end up affecting them over there. Not to shy away from anything that we do, it's just, but I like what they've been doing and trying to revitalize in doing that. And I don't know if they did a market analysis back then or not, but
That's a good question. I can always check with them. Yeah, that all started with the work that Tara Wilcoxon did with that downtown revitalization project where they kind of changed how the parking was down, they put angle in parking, changed the sidewalks and the curbs and everything. That was a phenomenal project. It was really painful for them to go through. The businesses down there were really upset about it for a while because the sidewalks were all.
kind of like our undergrounding project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in the end, when you look at the downtown now and you compare that to what that main drag looked like before she started, it's like, hey, very nice.
But I think that's the opportunity. It's like everyone was mad at Sandy Net for ripping up all their yards when we put fiber in. And we just get, you will forget about this in 1 year.
And they did.
You will never bring that up
But we
again.
did.
And no one brings up about their flowers got ripped up because they had a trench underneath it for their yard, right? They're all excited about their fiber. Just like the undergrounding project, what a difference if you were to look at the pictures before and
Yeah,
the pictures
totally.
after. It's just night and day different. But whatever we do inside our community too, and how we do that. But it's not just about redevelopment. There's that aspect of that, but the
Yeah,
market
yeah.
analysis is what are we bringing? What are we trying to attract from a retail side of things, right?
That's good.
I want to make sure we're not missing that point of it as we look at these other communities. So there's the economic gardening, which we learned a lot about from McMinnville, which I think would be good to bring to this group too. And what's that relates, especially if we have certain areas of Pleasant Street that are needing to be revitalized, especially with now some of the buildings being torn down with the pool and the Cedar Ridge, but then also down there on Bell Street too.
And also keep in mind that one of the elements in economic development strategic plan is specifically to at some point bring the Pleasant Street Master Plan back in front of the council for a larger discussion about that. I think right now it would be best if we waited until the demos were complete. And the park is complete. But we've got some different ideas about how to make that project maybe a little bit more affordable. So that's coming.
But I'd love to see this come through and to advise us of what our community wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because we can think about it with the, 7 of us or whatever, and just like, oh, but what is the rest of it, the 13,000 people in our city, but then not just there. I hope we're reaching out to outside our area, right? Our market circle, from Welch's to Estacada, because we are the East County hub.
Yeah, we will be drawing from a broader market area than just Sandy when we're considering who's coming here. And I think that it'll be kind of an interesting analysis too, because you serve East Clackamas County, you serve your residents, which come from a broader area than Sandy, but then you also have your tourism that drives through. And so, some of these market analysis I've done, that it's also, how do you get somebody to stop for one more hour, one more day? And so there's kind of this twofold, you're serving what residents need, and then potentially, what else might you have that both tourists might enjoy some of the residential stuff, but then other pieces as well from a tourism perspective.
Yeah, like putting all the superchargers down at Fred Meyer's. How about a supercharger up here by Millennial, the plaza, where you can go to the stores because you're stopping for 20 minutes to charge your car. I have a electric car now.
I'm looking into it.
So, but, you know, where they're placed is, you know, what activities that they can go and do. Can they go to the coffee shop? Can they go get food? Can they, you know, is it at the fast food restaurant or is it in our downtown where they can visit our stores or, you know, those type of things,
Mhm.
or coffee or lunch or dinner or those type of things. And as I've taken a long trip now, and that's what I'm looking for. I was like, what?
Absolutely.
So Bend has one right next to the mill, the old mill district. The problem is it charges too fast. So I drive over there
That's a
and
good problem to have.
it's like, oh, I only have 10 minutes. I can't go get. We're running over there, getting it and running back to get, because they'll charge
So you need
idly.
less efficient chargers is what I'm hearing.
No, I'm saying closer, closer to things that you know you want to have, right? Like, and I think that's something that, not because I have an electric car, but I think you're going to see a lot more of those, right? You know, is in 20 years, we know that the regulations are making that happen, but and people want them, but you know, how would that factor in to where those are placed or in locations? Because right now they're only at Fred Meyer's.
Right.
And I mean, Fred Meyer's is great, but I'd rather go sit and have something to eat or drink or whatever while I wait than, you know.
We'll have one or two at the library here soon too. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I've been making pitches for electric chargers here too, and my pitches, it's been getting easier now that Kylie drives it.
Oh, did you? We'll talk later.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
just something to also think about how that can drive the commercial areas, or what, you know, where those are located at, and then what gets put up around them, vice versa.
So what do you guys think? In you know, from the discussion here we've had so far, I haven't considered it before, but Ridgefield sounds very good to me. What do you guys think?
It's been 5 years since I've been up there, so go check it out.
Yeah, I haven't been up there, but I do know it's about equal distance away from Portland as a center. So folks who are commuting to the metro area, it's about the same distance. It's about the same size. I think they were 10,500 at the 2020 census.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
it's
they just don't have a highway running through it. 'Cause
Right,
You get
but-
off the 5 to go into it.
a fast growing, similar size, same distance from the metro area, really. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities that. Now, I've never been to their downtown, so it could be non-existent for all I know, you know, but people want to live there.
Yeah.
You know that.
And they seem to be growing pretty well too. And you know, Nicole, if you guys say you got Nico's done work up there recently.
Not, I don't think we've done it in Ridgefield. We've been doing a lot of work in St. Helens. And so I'm happy to also just kind of tap some people at Echo as well, just to see if they have some more ideas. We might have done some work in Ridgefield. I need to look into it. But it was something that that Chris did point out, and he seemed to think that it's been the downtown's been growing quite nicely. So, and I do know from a population perspective, it has been growing. A lot of the places just north of Vancouver have been just like Sandy, like in the air, population explosion, you know, so.
Is there any?
But I'll just say what I have written down, which we can think about a little bit further, is Ridgefield, Lebanon, Estacada, Redmond, Madras, Sisters, and then McMinnville. Those are the ones that I've got listed.
Great group of cities to choose from.
And there's a river. I'm glad you put in.
Oh, the river, yeah.
I'm glad you put in Madras, because driving through it, I've been kind of impressed with what they've been doing to Madras over the last 5 years or so. They've, you know, and it's a highway going through it. It's split like we are, a little bit different, but they have that huge semi trucks and going through it as well, and how they've kind of revitalized it. They've got a longer couplet than we do, maybe a bigger downtown aspect of it for sure, but they're doing some things and attracting some.
Which one is Wild Ride? Is that Redmond or?
Redmond.
That's right.
Yeah, and then I think Redmond's a great example too for it. So, so.
Cool, okay, well, it sounds like we've got a pretty good group of cities to choose from. I guess maybe we'll noodle on this a little bit more and Nicole, I'll keep in touch. For sure.
Yeah,
Can we take a field
good.
trip?
Absolutely, we can take a field trip. I'm down. Let's do it. All right.
All right, well, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
All right, so go from there. I had a question, David, from our last meeting. We talked about, I think I know the answer because we've been talking about it, is, and we're gonna have Lori and Chris go back to city council, are funding this market analysis, because it was an unfunded, so I hadn't heard back after that, right? So thank you for supporting us and
Yes.
encouraging it, but I'm assuming it wasn't a hard sell.
No, it was- yeah, it was unanimous.
Okay, probably, hopefully not a long
There was
discussion.
questions about whether they had already done it or not, already paid for it. And then-
Wasn't that the same questions I brought up? Like, I was like, wait a minute.
Well, nonetheless, Chris, thank you and thank Councilor Paul too for championing that for us
Yeah.
in council. That was, that was really important. And thank you for keeping this on the front burner.
So,
Because
well,
this is an important thing for us to do.
I think, we tried doing this here before COVID, and, well, something got in the way. And then, which I'm glad we paused it all, because that would have just been, I think, a waste of
It would have
money
been wasted.
during that time, and we're coming out of it, and we paused, I think, long enough to where we kind of come out of it, and we're now adjusting and figuring out, what does retail look like? What does our Sandy, what does our community want? As we talked about, and I think we'll then, perfect time will come out of this, and I think ahead of maybe other communities that are trying to refigure out what they're gonna be looking like after COVID. Any other comments? Chris, any comments from you or anybody else here?
Well, I'm just really excited about the market analysis, because I've been saying we need retail shopping in the downtown area, for those people who stop and are charging their cars, besides just having somewhere to go eat, something else for them to do. So I'm excited to hear the outcomes of this. I think it's great.
Any other additional comments?
I just had a question. How do they gather data? Are they just sending out surveys? Like, how is this?
A lot of the way they gather data is through surveys. Some of it is through going through our past reports, so they have some numbers to compare to. But yeah, most of it is.
They also take in information from around the areas too, and other, as they go farther outside of Sandy. In the past, they've had meetings at the library. I don't know if that was part of the scope or not, like community meetings to bring people in, because, people like to see boards and talk about things and have that. Maybe it's here, stickers on typically. I'm assuming that they're gonna do the same on that.
No, I
Some
need to
type
talk
of
to them about that. It's not real.
outreach. But they're supposed to be doing the outreach
Yeah.
for this.
Indeed. And then a lot of the data is also gathered from places like the Census Bureau and ACH and things like that. So like when they determine, one of the things that I'm most interested in this report is surplus and leakage. So leakage is when you have X demand that you only have you have X supply and like 0.7X demand. And so, or the other way around. So there's more demand than there is supply. That demand will leak out to other communities because we just don't have the supply.
Like maybe Gresham because they're nearest.
Yeah, and I want to know what our citizens are going to Gresham to buy because they can't buy it here. So maybe those are places we can look at with businesses to say, hey, we have a lot of people that are driving, 15 minutes to other communities to get the products that we sell because we don't have it here. That's a good pitch. But that's the thing I'm most interested in is, like last time around, we had a surplus of like, go back to but we had a deficit in grocery, believe it or not.
Was that before?
When it was-
Fred
Yeah,
Meyer?
this is
No.
2015, so this is after Fred.
Yeah, way after February.
Yeah, so if you can.
But we
believe
had
that.
a deficit in women's apparel.
Oh,
that
we
was
had a deficit
that
in
was like the
apparel
number
across
one.
the
Do we
board.
have any of that?
That's the
We have
point. There
Fred
wasn't
Meyer.
any, right? But-
Well, Fred Meyer was it until, and we had like the shop girl consignment, but.
And the other one too. by
Yeah, and the other one down by.
Grocery outlet, yeah.
So it takes, it takes population to support stuff too, right? And And then we also compete against Amazon, to be frank, you know, I wonder how much Amazon cardboard boxes leave our community every week in the recycling bins. I know a lot probably from my house.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how the world has changed a little bit. But how do we protect what we have in here, and how do we shift? And how do we encourage those with the policies we make, and to encourage that to stay here local? So the money here locally gets spent like 3 times more in our community. if we keep it local.
Good question. Is a retail market analysis become public information?
Yeah, the last two are posted on.
And if Hans was here, he would tell you, 'cause he's told us many times, that he used that to go to the bank to be able to get his loan, his business plan, and show that the city did this. So this is not just for, hey, it's fun for us to have as a community and say, hey, no, it's actually for people that say, hey, oh, I want to open a business in here. And look at about like, what is the needs? And like, hey, I can, look, the city just went out and did this study, paid money. They're saying that this is a thing that we need. And, you know, Hans has got a great thriving business. COVID hindered it, but he's a great businessman, pivoted a little bit, kept it going. And people travel all over to go to, and I'm like, there need to be a few more out. He needs to franchise that.
He should, honestly.
But
Yeah, but one of them asked us.
not too close to us because we're
Yeah,
cheaper.
okay, we're good.
So, any other comments? Hearing none, we will close the meeting at 7:56. Give you 4 minutes. So.
Chris, do you always work in the dark?
You know, it looks dark in here, but it's really not. It's a little crazy.
Are you?
There goes the cat. Good night, everyone.
Thank-
Yeah, she-